The world rarely takes from you by force. More often it takes from you because you never learned when to close the door. The more accessible you become, the more your presence shifts from appreciated to expected. A strange rule governs human nature. What is constantly available gradually loses its perceived value. Not because people are cruel, but because familiarity quietly turns gratitude into assumption. Time, attention, energy. These are the most valuable things a person possesses, yet they are often given away as though they cost nothing. The Stoics understood something that modern life encourages us to forget. Your peace has value. Your attention has value. Your presence has value. The moment you allow unlimited access to them, you begin teaching the world that they are free. And what costs nothing is rarely protected and rarely valued. This is why so many people feel exhausted despite doing everything they were told would earn appreciation. They confuse being available with being valuable. They confuse constant accessibility with genuine importance. The truth is more uncomfortable than that. Many of the people who feel overlooked are not lacking worth. They are giving it away too freely. They answer every request. They carry burdens that were never theirs to carry. They make themselves available to everyone except themselves. Then they wonder why they feel drained, invisible, and disconnected from their own lives. The problem is not that they have too little value. The problem is that they have forgotten the cost of their own presence. Most people never question the idea that being available is a sign of goodness. It is presented as a virtue from an early age. Answer quickly. Help when asked. Be dependable. Be accommodating. Be there whenever someone needs you. On the surface, these qualities seem admirable, and in the right measure, they are. The problem begins when availability stops being a choice and becomes a condition of existence. Somewhere along the way, many people stop choosing where their time goes and start surrendering it automatically. They become so accustomed to responding to every request that they no longer stop to consider whether the request deserves a response at all. Accessibility becomes the default, and what begins as kindness slowly transforms into something else entirely. Human beings adapt remarkably well. That ability allows us to survive hardship, recover from setbacks, and continue moving forward when circumstances become difficult. Yet the same tendency creates an unexpected problem in relationships. The things that are consistently present often become invisible. Not because they lose importance, but because the mind becomes accustomed to them. Consider the steady ticking of a clock on a wall. At first you notice it, then it fades into the background. The sound hasn't changed, only your attention has. Something similar happens when a person makes themselves endlessly available. Their presence becomes expected rather than appreciated. Their reliability becomes assumed rather than acknowledged. This can be difficult to accept because it seems to contradict everything people are taught about relationships. Many assume that giving more automatically creates greater value, yet value is rarely determined by effort alone. It is shaped by perception, attention, and scarcity. When something is always available, the mind gradually stops assigning conscious importance to it. This is not necessarily an act of disrespect. It is simply how human psychology works. As Seneca observed, nothing is prized more highly than what is difficult to attain. People notice change more than consistency, absence more than presence, interruption more than routine. A person who is always there eventually becomes part of the scenery in other people's lives. The consequences of this pattern are often subtle at first. A message arrives and receives an immediate reply. A favor is requested and accepted without hesitation. A problem appears and someone rushes in to solve it. Each moment seems insignificant on its own, yet over time they create an unspoken expectation. Access becomes assumed rather than appreciated. The person giving their energy starts carrying more responsibility while receiving less consideration. Their role becomes fixed. They become the one who understands, the one who listens, the one who adjusts. And because this role develops gradually, they rarely notice how much of themselves they have invested until exhaustion begins to appear. Exhaustion is often misunderstood. Many assume it comes from working too hard or carrying too many obligations. Sometimes it comes from something deeper. It emerges when a person gives attention to everything except their own inner life. They become experts at managing the needs of others while neglecting their own priorities. They know everyone else's problems, schedules, concerns, and emotions, yet remain disconnected from themselves. Their days become crowded with obligations that seemed small when accepted, but become heavy when accumulated. Exhaustion rarely comes from one great sacrifice. More often, it comes from hundreds of small concessions made without thought. The Stoics understood something that remains relevant centuries later. Time is not simply a resource. It is the substance of life itself. Every hour given away is a portion of existence that can never be reclaimed. Money can return. Opportunities can return. Possessions can be replaced. Time moves in only one direction. This awareness led Stoic thinkers to guard their attention carefully, not because they were selfish, but because they understood that a life spent reacting to everything leaves little room for intentional living. The person who owns their attention owns their direction. The person who gives it away indiscriminately gradually loses both. This does not mean withdrawing from the world or refusing to help others. It means recognizing the difference between conscious generosity and unconscious self-neglect. One comes from strength, the other from fear. Fear of disappointing someone, fear of appearing selfish, fear of being misunderstood, fear of losing approval. These fears quietly influence decisions that seem harmless in the moment. A person says yes because saying no feels uncomfortable. They remain available because setting limits feels difficult. They continue giving because stopping feels unfamiliar. Yet every decision carries a cost, even when that cost remains invisible. Over time, a strange paradox begins to emerge. The more a person sacrifices their own priorities to accommodate everyone else, the less connected they feel to their own life. Their schedule becomes full, but their sense of purpose becomes weaker. Their conversations increase, but their inner clarity decreases. Their accessibility grows, but their presence loses weight. The very thing they hoped would create appreciation often produces the opposite effect. Not because people are intentionally taking advantage of them, but because unlimited access naturally reduces perceived value. There is a quiet lesson hidden inside this realization. Presence gains meaning when it is intentional. Attention gains value when it is directed. Time gains significance when it is protected. The goal is not to become distant or unavailable. The goal is to become deliberate, to recognize that attention is one of the most powerful forms of currency a person possesses. Every conversation, commitment, and obligation represents an investment of that currency. And like any investment, it deserves consideration. Once this becomes clear, a different question begins to emerge. Not how much can be given, but where it should be given. Not how available one can become, but what deserves access in the first place. Because the value of presence is never determined by how often it is offered. It is determined by the awareness behind its offering. And when attention is distributed with intention rather than habit, something remarkable begins to happen. Energy returns, clarity returns, a sense of ownership returns. What was once scattered gradually becomes focused. What was once expected becomes meaningful, and what was once taken for granted begins to carry weight again. If these ideas speak to something deeper within you, consider subscribing, not as a gesture of support, but as a commitment to returning to these principles. In a world that constantly competes for your attention, choosing reflection over distraction is a rare decision. And sometimes, a single idea revisited at the right moment can change the direction of an entire life. The value of something often becomes visible only when it is no longer guaranteed. This is one of the quiet truths that governs human behavior. People lock away what is rare. They protect what can disappear. They pay attention to what is limited. Yet when it comes to their own presence, many act as though these principles no longer apply. They make themselves endlessly available, endlessly accommodating, endlessly predictable. Every message receives an immediate response. Every request receives consideration. Every invitation receives attention. Their presence becomes so reliable that it loses the quality that once made it meaningful. Not because they have become less valuable, but because constant availability removes the possibility of absence. This is not a cynical observation about human nature. It is simply a recognition of how attention works. The mind is drawn to contrast. It notices beginnings and endings, change and interruption. What remains constant often fades into the background, even when it remains important. As Aristotle observed, we value what is rare more than what is abundant. The air in a room is essential, yet few people think about it until it becomes difficult to breathe. The same pattern appears in relationships, workplaces, and everyday interactions. A person who is always available can become so familiar that their presence is assumed rather than valued. Their reliability becomes an expectation rather than a gift. Over time, that expectation becomes invisible. The Stoics understood the importance of remembering that nothing is permanent. They reflected regularly on loss, not because they were pessimistic, but because they knew awareness sharpens appreciation. When people remember that something can disappear, they see it differently. They stop treating it casually. They stop assuming it will always be there. They become more attentive, more grateful, more conscious. Yet many people unknowingly create the opposite effect in their own lives. They remove all uncertainty from their availability. Others never have to wonder whether they will answer, whether they will show up, or whether they will make time. The answer is always predictable. Eventually, predictability turns into assumption. There is a subtle cost hidden inside this pattern. It rarely announces itself dramatically. Instead, it appears through small moments that seem harmless on their own. Agreeing to another commitment despite feeling exhausted, rearranging plans to satisfy someone else's expectations, accepting responsibilities that were never yours to carry. Each decision feels minor. Each accommodation seems reasonable. Yet these moments accumulate. They form habits. Those habits become identities. Before long, a person becomes known more for their accessibility than for their values, goals, or aspirations. They become the one who is always there, even when being there comes at the expense of their own well-being. What makes this particularly difficult to recognize is that it often feels virtuous. Society frequently rewards availability. People are praised for being helpful, dependable, and selfless. These qualities have value, but they can become distorted when disconnected from discernment. There is a difference between generosity and automatic compliance. One comes from intention. The other often comes from fear. Fear of disappointing someone, fear of appearing selfish, fear of creating discomfort. These fears operate quietly beneath the surface, influencing choices that seem insignificant in the moment, but become significant over time. Many people spend years living according to expectations they never consciously chose. They attend gatherings they do not enjoy. They participate in conversations that leave them drained. They commit to obligations that pull them away from what truly matters. They become so busy responding to external demands that they lose sight of internal priorities. Then a strange feeling begins to emerge. Their days are full, yet they feel disconnected. Their schedules are crowded, yet their progress slows. Their attention is constantly occupied, yet their deeper goals remain untouched. This confusion is often mistaken for a lack of motivation, when in reality, it is a lack of alignment.